The industry has been shocked to learn that GM and Honda have chosen to cease the manufacture of electric vehicles in an unexpected decision. The market for EVs has been expanding quickly, but not without difficulties. Many manufacturers entered the market quite early, but they are now dealing with a number of problems that seem to be forcing them to start over from scratch. What, therefore, caused GM and Honda to abandon their electric vehicle plans? What does this imply for EVs going forward? The development of inexpensive electric cars. Everlands come to an end for General Motors, Gumtree and Honda Motor. The companies cited slower than expected demand and changing market circumstances for their decision. About 18 months have passed since the relationship was first announced when the decision was made. The goal of the partnership was to use GM's next-generation Ultium battery technology to produce millions of EVs under $30,000 for sale worldwide by 2027, including small crossover versions. But the businesses have had to contend with issues including rising expenses, inadequate infrastructure, and weak customer demand. GM spokesperson Daryl Harrison told CNBC, "We have come to a mutual decision to discontinue the program after extensive studies and analysis." He underlined that both businesses are still dedicated to making EVs affordable. Harrison made it clear that the cancellation had nothing to do with GM's intentions for the upcoming Bolt. GM CEO Barra said during an earnings call that the Bolt would be a better choice and mentioned that a $5 billion capital commitment for entry-level EVs had been discontinued. So the driving, charging, and ownership experiences will be improved even more by using Ultium in conjunction with the greatest features of the current Bolt according to Barra. During a press event, GM CFO Paul Jacobson said that the business is balancing production to demand. According to Bloomberg Television, Toshihiro Mibe, the CEO of Honda, the inexpensive EV initiative would be difficult as a business, notwithstanding the setback. GM and Honda will continue their existing agreements, which include one for GM to produce the 2024 Honda Prologue EV, hydrogen fuel cells, and driverless cars. The decision to end the inexpensive EV program comes after General Motors recently revealed that it will be reducing its near-term EV ambitions and delaying the production of at least 3 future EVs. Since it is impossible for us to cover everything in one day, we will choose a few themes and get into further depth on them. Range, charging, and batteries. It is hard to forecast when and to what extent range will increase. The first contemporary mass-manufactured EVs, such as the Renault Zoe, were only starting to be made 10 years ago. Additionally, we saw that these autos had a range of around 100 kilometers. This was sufficient for the majority of people's daily journey, but it wasn't very outstanding. And in 2021, we will have access to some vehicles that can easily go 400 kilometers and, under ideal circumstances, more than 600 kilometers. One has to believe that reaching the 1,000 km milestone won't be too far off in the near future. Alternative forms of transportation we have just discussed autos so far. However, as everyone is aware, there are other options for getting about. The most cutting-edge EV technology seems to be being developed now in the private transportation sector. Just look at how Tesla has pushed this forward. However, we're beginning to see other uses for the technology. Electric ferries are beginning to be used in nations like Denmark and Norway. It seems that all modes of transportation may use EVs in the future. Supplying our EVs with energy in this video, we've previously discussed how and when automobile charging can alter, but we neglected to address the source of electricity. This is something that is quickly evolving. Self-sufficiency and microgrids will become increasingly commonplace. More and more people will have solar panels installed on their rooftops. Retail stores and educational institutions will install solar panels so that automobiles may be charged with the extra energy generated throughout the day. How far this progresses is a matter of time, but it's an interesting moment in history. That kind of forward-looking perspective has been intriguing, however, but also quite challenging. Just take a look at how quickly things have changed in the last 10 years. Therefore, it is almost impossible to forecast with any degree of accuracy what kind of automobiles we will be driving in 10 years. We would adore hearing from you. Battery costs must drop below $100 per kilowatt hour, according to McKinsey, for electric vehicles to be competitive with cars powered by internal combustion engines. However, the supply chain is restricted by the availability of raw materials and manufacturing capacity, and the current average price is around $156 per kilowatt-hour. Consumer preferences and demands, which range between markets and geographies, provide another difficulty for EV sales. According to Deloitte, OEMs must adopt a new strategy for market segmentation that takes into account variables including driving habits, infrastructure for charging, environmental consciousness, and legislative incentives. One market that is supported by strong legislative backing and considerable customer interest in green mobility is Europe, where EV sales share reached 10 in 2020. In contrast, big SUV and pickup trucks, which are less suited for electrification, dominate the US market, where EV sales share was just 2 in 2020. This was the result that former Toyota CEO Akio Toyoda had foreseen, cautioning that the world was not yet ready to transition to electric vehicles. He had maintained that because EVs relied on the supply of energy and the materials needed for batteries, they were not always more environmentally friendly than traditional automobiles. He had also mentioned the drawbacks of electric vehicles, including their high cost, short range, lengthy charging times, and dearth of infrastructure. He had pushed governments and the industry to take a more reasonable and practical attitude to the switch to electric vehicles and to take into account alternative choices such as hydrogen fuel cells and hybrids. However, because of his opinions, he faced criticism and was forced to resign as president of the Japan Automobile Manufacturers Association. However, he can now claim, "I told you so," that GM and Honda may no longer be working together to produce more affordable EVs. However, this does not imply that they are permanently splitting up. They will continue to collaborate going forward since they have a long history of working together on a variety of initiatives pertaining to electric and autonomous cars. The Honda Prologue is a joint venture of theirs, Honda's first long-range electric vehicle for the US market. The Ultium platform from General Motors powers the Honda Prologue. It is an electric motor and battery system that can power several EV types. When the Honda Prologue debuts on the market next year, it will compete with other electric vehicles like the Tesla Model Y and the Ford F-150 Lightning. And Honda have also collaborated in the field of autonomous vehicles. Honda is one of the investors in Cruise, an entirely GM-owned self-driving vehicle startup. Cruise is building a fleet of self-driving cars that can get about cities without the need for human assistance. Additionally, GM and Honda collaborated to build the Cruise Origin, a special autonomous shuttle that has room for up to 6 people. The Cruise Origin is expected to arrive in Japan in 2026 after making its debut in the US the following year. Now, some individuals think that the high cost barrier is what causes electric cars to struggle rather than a lack of demand. According to surveys, a significant portion of prospective customers is either inquisitive or very excited about making the move to electric transportation. Their excitement, however, is insufficient to get over the financial obstacle of buying a new electric vehicle, which typically costs more than $50,000. Affordability plays a bigger role in the mainstream adoption of EVs, as the pool of early adopters who are prepared to pay more to be part of the EV revolution shrinks. The adoption curve that divides ardent, early adopters from mainstream consumers has hit a trough in the market, according to Mike Austin, an EV industry analyst at Guidehouse Insights. He said to Insider that the EV sector is at a crucial stage right now, as it has to persuade most people that EVs are a desirable and practical alternative. He said that before a product really takes off, there is a type of transition period. There aren't as many folks who can afford to extend themselves to buy a vehicle for more than $60,000. Dealers have also seen a shift in the characteristics of EV purchasers. Electric car buyers used to be mostly EV fanatics, but more general consumers are now weighing their choices between EVs, hybrids, and gasoline-powered vehicles. It's difficult for a lot of these prospective customers to justify paying more upfront to switch to electric vehicles. It seems reasonable that customer tastes are changing. Fewer individuals are prepared to pay more for the opportunity to experiment with cutting-edge technology, and even fewer are ready to take a risk on it. This is the state of affairs in the EV market right now. It is accurate to say that demand for EVs has decreased. The US has seen a steady increase in the sales of electric cars for 13 quarters running. Yet the growth pace has somewhat slowed. Because of this, some dealers have declined to provide EV allocations, and manufacturers have responded by increasing incentives to drive sales. It's crucial to remember that the EV industry is still in its infancy and now only provides higher-end models. Luxury companies like Audi, Porsche, and Mercedes-Benz are the source of a large number of battery-powered vehicles that are available in the US. Additionally, mainstream brand EVs are more expensive than their gasoline-powered equivalents. For example, a reasonably equipped Ford Mustang Mach-E costs at least $50,000, whereas an electric F-150 pickup, which is generally preferred, costs around $70,000 and has a bigger battery pack. The BZ4 SUV Toyota Soul electric vehicle costs around $42,000, or about $14,000 more than a dependable RAV4. Moreover, the selection of reasonably priced EVs is limited. For instance, prominent companies do not offer any full-size electric SUVs with 3 rows. There aren't many inexpensive electric choices for American consumers below $40,000, and even fewer that can be classified as really affordable. As automakers struggle with the high expenses of increasing manufacturing and creating new electric goods, there is still optimism for the future of electric transportation, despite the difficulties and uncertainties that EVs must overcome. A lot of manufacturers are putting a lot of effort into releasing more varied and reasonably priced EV vehicles that will appeal to a larger spectrum of consumers. In addition, some governments are encouraging the switch to electric vehicles by developing infrastructure and providing incentives, while some customers are becoming more conscious of the effects that their transportation decisions have on the environment and society. In the long term, these elements may provide a positive feedback loop that increases the demand for and adoption of EVs. As a result, rather than being seen as a sign of failure, the discontinuation of the GM-Honda joint EV venture represents adaptability. Both businesses have come to the realization that they must reconsider their approaches and bring them into line with the prospects and reality of the marketplace. Additionally, they have shown their continued dedication to working together on new initiatives that might progress the domains of autonomous and electric cars. GM and Honda still have a big part to play in the EV revolution if they learn from their mistakes and adapt to the new environment. What are your thoughts on this? Tell us in the space provided for comments.